I used to do lots of things.
I used to do things and I'd say things and Jesus I was evil. Take things and break things and Jesus I was evil.
Record.
All
All right. Welcome to the latest episode of the Reckless Musecast.
That's right.
Yeah.
Joe,
What's up?
so I'm almost pulling the trigger
Okay.
on coming to LA.
Yeah.
I'll probably buy a ticket soon. And I was wondering because obviously I've never been.
Yeah.
So I want to do something really authentic in LA,
Uh-huh.
like eat somewhere really authentic. So have you been to, and would you recommend Sizzler?
Yeah, that's what LA is known for.
Is it really?
LA.
Okay, because I've only ever seen it in the Anthony Bourdain Sizzler episode. I can't tell if you're being sarcastic, but I really want to go because But I was thinking, are they still like doing buffets because of coronavirus? Like I have no idea.
Good question. So the last time I went to a Sizzler was probably like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago.
Oh, okay. So you've been recently. All right.
Yeah, I went to the one in the Bay Area, and when I was a kid, there were a lot more Sizzlers.
Yeah.
Now they're mostly all dried up.
Yeah.
But I'm not very picky when it comes to food. Like I have the palate of like a garbage disposal. Even when I went to Sizzler, the food was not very good. Even for like, yeah, it was pretty bad. And like, it takes a lot for me to be like, yeah, I don't think I'll ever come here again. I don't know. Maybe the chef was mad that day. Maybe it's
you don't just. I thought the whole thing is you just do the salad bar.
Yeah. I don't eat like a rabbit. I eat like a man. So I just went for the steak and shrimp.
Yeah, but they have like meatballs and shit at the salad bar. I don't
salad
know.
Bar?
Yeah, that's like what I thought that's what's known for. But whatever. I don't know. I want to do shit that like there are no Sizzlers near me. Obviously, there's no In-N-Out burger, right? So I've never had In-N-Out burger, so I have to do that.
Yep.
And that kind of stuff. I want to do like, I'm just kind of writing down places that sound interesting to me. Dude, everything I'm hearing, even from Vinny and Pat last episode, and then like just different podcasts of people, a lot of people live in LA. Everyone's like Hollywood Boulevard's like a war zone. Like, do not go to Hollywood Boulevard. That's like one of the few things I wanted to do.
Yeah. It's
like
worth going to, man. It's worth going to. It's it is super trashy.
I'm okay with trashy. I'm not okay with dangerous. Like that.
So West Hollywood is a little more touristy. It's a little better. And then as you start going more to the west, like Sunset Strip, that's when you get like more cool bars and things. But the sort of like the east end of Hollywood and Hollywood Boulevard, that's where it's I don't quite feel that comfortable walking around the street by myself. A rabid hobo might come at me with a syringe sort of thing.
Even during the day.
During the day, it's not quite as bad. But it's still. But also, there's just not that much to do in like the eastern part of the east side of Hollywood Boulevard. But it goes from and this is just from my experience, but it goes from like really shitty to like trashy, but kind of gimmicky, and then it starts getting into like more like, okay, here's some cool bars and cool restaurants.
What about like the Chinese theater area? Like I want to see that.
Yeah, it's fun. It's cool. It's gimmicky, but it's definitely worth checking out. It's kind of like I don't know, maybe kind of like Times Square in a way, where it's just like, there's just like a whole bunch of gimmicky things packed into one.
But even Times Square has. I mean, I haven't been there in a very long time. I go to the city a good amount, but not Times Square area. But I've heard. I know Tim Dillon said like he felt in physical danger.
Yeah.
Times Square. That's what it used to be. Times Square used to be like a really dangerous place in like the 70s and 80s and stuff till I cleaned up. And now it's kind of reverting back to that.
Yeah.
But like not in a fun way. Like it's not like the sex shows and stuff and peep shows and porn and shit like that. It's like still Disneyfied, but it's kind of like more depressed. It's honestly, it reminds me of like a Banksy painting or like a Banksy piece of art. It's like Disney and like tents and tweakers and shit like that.
Anyway. I was on Hollywood Boulevard in front of the Chinese theater a couple weekends ago, and I was with my parents too. Like, but I didn't feel like we were like in any real danger. Maybe because there are just so many tourists, so it's kind of like it's just so packed. But every once in a while, like you'll pass by an alleyway that's just like covered in shit and garbage and syringes and shit.
And like it's like human shit.
Yeah, exactly. We're just kind of like, okay, I'm gonna stick to the main strip.
Yeah, it's rough.
But, yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'll let you know when I pull the trigger on that and head out to I've never been to California.
Yeah, no, it's pretty terrible out here, man. You're gonna love it.
Well,
No,
yeah.
it's no, it's one of those places. I was just talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and it's one of those places
Yeah.
where it's like, don't get me wrong. I mean, like, so many of the criticisms of LA and California are true and valid. We've got
Sure.
stupid politicians running the place, and
Mhm.
homelessness is a real problem, and it's
Yeah.
expensive. And there are a lot of obnoxious people here. But if you love movies and TV shows and music and literature, it's still kind of a gold mine of like pop culture, and
Yeah.
and not just the big gimmicky things. Just like, I mean, like, for me being a film buff, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, hey, this restaurant was featured in that movie. This is so cool. Like, even if it's like a dumb little
That-
cafe, I'm just
That
going,
is
oh,
very
this is cool.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
No, I'm excited to come.
Yeah.
I just never been, and that'll be another one to check off, and hopefully make it a regular thing.
Yeah,
It'll be really cool.
definitely.
We have to hit up the people, some past guests and stuff, or do some of our live shows.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call them. Anyway, all right. So what's going on there?
Not much. So I just watched a movie recently on Sunday. Is that new horror movie? It's called The Night House. Have you heard of that one?
The Night House?
Yeah. It's
Oh.
got Rebecca Hall and pretty much nobody else important.
Okay.
And I did not care much for it. It had a cool premise. I won't give too much away, but it's about Rebecca Hall plays a woman who her husband just committed suicide, and she lives in a house that was designed by her husband. This really gorgeous lake house. And she's going through all the grief and everything, and then she's going through his stuff, and she finds out that he was actually building a mirror image of their house just across the lake. And she goes, well, that's kind of weird. I didn't know that. And then and she starts diving more into his stuff, and he finds out he was into the occult. I won't give much more away. I love the premise.
Yeah.
I love the idea of like just like this idea of like this thing that's ours, like our personal home. Like there's no other house just like it, but now there's an exact replica of it right across the lake, and it's built for a weird, bizarre reason. So it had a really cool premise. I like the fact that it was going more for suspense and just sort of like like a really cool premise rather than just straightforward like blood and guts. The acting was okay.
Did you see it in theaters or did you stream it?
I watched it in theaters. Yeah.
It's on theater. Yeah, I don't know why I haven't heard of this movie. I'm gonna do so once like October hits.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna watch horror movies. Like
Oh,
that's all
yeah.
I'm basically gonna do. And I do the mini reviews, and we're definitely gonna do at least one horror
episode.
movie
Yeah.
episode. I think we should definitely talk about some movies, maybe favorite directors or characters or literally anything, because I think that could be a recurring thing for us because I love horror movies.
Oh yeah.
A lot of times they are kind of what you're saying, like, okay, the premise is good but it didn't deliver, but when a horror movie delivers, there's like nothing like it.
Oh yeah. No, I'm sure we'll have a lot of fun conversations about that coming up. But the Night House, it was cool premise, and the production the production values were decent and reasonably well acted, but it just sort of like there were things that just didn't make much sense, and then like it had a strong build up. I was like, oh, okay, like there's some cool mysteries. It's getting creepy and weird, and then it just kind of got kind of silly towards like the last half. I was like, well, all right. But I mean, in terms of like not being a completely generic horror film from a mainstream studio, it's all right. It's worth a watch. It's worth checking out. So
all right, I can add it. I've got a bunch because I like have been purposely not watching horror. So I have a nice like cachet of horror for when October hits. I already know a bunch of them. I got The Wailing on there.
Oh, okay.
And I think it's called I think it's also Korean. And that's a Korean movie, right?
Yes.
Korean,
dude. I heard that one's good. I haven't seen it.
It's very good. Have you seen Ganjam Haunted Asylum?
I don't think so.
Yo, that movie is so scary. It's also a Korean movie. It's like the premise is so basic, like a bunch of streamers. It used to be, guys with a video camera, right? But now it's like streamers go to a haunted asylum and, shit starts happening. Like it's been done 100 times.
Yeah.
It's really, really scary. Highly recommend. And that's one like you should watch that and we should talk about it. Because that's one of those movies like a lot of people don't know about probably. Like, I only heard about it because like a friend of a friend, it just happens to be really into like Korean cinema specifically. Yeah. And told me about it. So I was like, all right, I'll watch it. And it was really good. Yeah. I highly recommend that.
Maybe we can do an episode where we give each other some recommendations and we'll kind of comment on them.
Yeah, I did a couple classics last October. I did and wrote about them, like Halloween, Friday the 13th,
Yep.
Exorcist.
Yeah.
I definitely did Exorcist recently. I don't know if it was exactly then.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, we'll save the horror movie talk.
Yeah.
We're gonna do at least an episode or two about that. So
Yeah.
anyway, what are we talking about today? What are we starting with? Aquafina?
Yeah, let's talk about Aquafina. She got into some controversy, and for those of you who follow me on Medium, I just wrote an article about it. So, for those of you who don't know, she is a rapper, comedian, and actress. And
is she a good rapper? I've never heard her music.
I listened to her song. I think it's called "My Vag." It's just about her vagina.
That came up. I figured. I was like, I'm not gonna listen to that song. But.
Yeah, I don't know. It was like it's just kind of dumb parody, but it was whatever. I've listened much
like
of her
parody
music.
rap.
Yeah. It was just about how
right,
her vagina is better than yours or something like that. I don't know. And how her vagina can do all these things. Yeah, it's good to have a superpowered vagina. She got into some controversy recently. So for the last few years, she's gotten some criticism because she's Asian, but she often plays characters, or in her rap, she'll do a black accent, which is a black accent.
Yeah.
And of course, in the super woke time, she's getting accused of cultural appropriation.
Bum.
Yeah, and it's becoming a big deal now because she is in the upcoming Marvel movie Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and so of course, whenever some actor is about to do something big, we have to dig up stuff on them.
Yes, we must pull them down by the ankle. Hold on to them, pull them down. No, you're not going up there. You're down here with the rest of us.
Especially when they're going to be in a movie that's going to make $1 billion.
Verbal gif, Evil Dead hand grabbing the ankle. He's on a lot when people are like, maybe there's some truth to libertarian politics. Like, join us down here in the cellar.
Oh man! But of course, she's about to start a movie that's probably gonna make $1 billion, and so it's like, let's dig something up on her. But here's the other thing though. So she's been accused of being a hypocrite, and here's where I agree, but for a different reason.
Yeah,
she is a hypocrite because somebody dug up an interview, or I should say, that interview resurfaced because somehow it just kind of popped up into thin air. Nobody dug that up.
Twitter's just like, here, yeah, you did. This is yours now. Take this.
The article just came out of hibernation. No, so she did an interview with Vice in 2017 where she was talking about how, as an Asian actress, she refuses to do roles where she puts on an Asian accent. And she goes, it's one thing if it's, if it makes sense in the context of the story, but I'm not going to be a minstrel for my people. I'm paraphrasing her, but that was more or less what she said. She did use the word minstrel. So I can see where people are coming from, where it's like, you refuse to do an Asian accent, but you're totally fine doing a black accent for movies and your music and stuff like that. So in that regard, yeah, she's a hypocrite. But here's the thing, and this is what I talked about in my article. For me, I'm looking at the hypocrisy of by committing in 2017 to I'm not going to play a stereotype. What she does is she's setting herself up for failure. It's because if you're saying I'm not going to put on this type of character, but I'm going to put on that other type of character, it's like she's gonna stray from that rule. As an actor, you're gonna put on accents. You're gonna try on different identities. You're gonna wander to different places, and some people are gonna be bothered by it. Not a big deal. That's what actors do. But people are seeing the hypocrisy of you said this and now you're doing that, and I'm looking at it from the reverse side. You should not have said this, because then you just set yourself up for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So hold on, I want to get, because I looked into it for the episode. I have my limit on cultural appropriation articles. So but this has just reached my limit for the week, and obviously because we're talking about it. So to clarify, she would do an accent if the character was an immigrant or something who had those accents do exist. People just if I spoke another language, if I speak Spanish, I might have a certain accent to it that someone who's not my first language, right? So so she is okay with that. But she doesn't want to be a caricature.
Yeah. And to give her some credit here, I understand, because in that same interview, she was talking about how she'll audition for a role, and the role
Yeah.
doesn't specify the race. So she's like,
Yeah.
all right, cool. I'm just gonna play some female character, whatever. So she
Sure.
goes in the audition, and then on the spot, they're like, oh, by the way, can you put on an Asian accent? So I can see where she's coming from. The idea that like, oh look, you're Asian, so I want you to play an Asian person. Now I want you to have the accent and everything. Where it's kind of, well, I'm not here to be a stereotype. It didn't say that in the script. It didn't have that like. So I can see where she's coming from in that regard.
Yeah.
But she did use the word minstrel though, when she's talking about, I don't want to be a minstrel for my people. And so it's like that word minstrel is like so associated with blackface and.
So, okay. So here's my, first of all, what is like the whole, these aren't equivalent accents. Like
Right.
one is because of a certain culture that what's like, it's called like AAE.
VE, I think.
Yeah. VE. And I want to get into that. But the other is, one is an accent because it's not someone's first language. They speak with an accent. So they're not even equivalent things. So to defend Aquafina in a way, isn't she from Queens?
I believe so. I know that's her whole shtick.
Yeah,
like being from
and
Queens.
I think she said that, and like I don't, people like, there's the Brooklyn accent or like Brooklynese and all of that, and it doesn't matter what color you are, if you're black, if you're Italian, if you're Vietnamese, if you're Jew, like people have an accent who live there because of the culture. Like I live in where I work, there's a big Orthodox Jewish population, and a lot of them either have family or move back and forth or come from Brooklyn, specifically Williamsburg, and they have that accent.
Yeah.
You know, and if they met someone from Brownsville or maybe Red Hook or something, they might have very similar accents, but because they're different colors, one's putting on the other, like that's not true. Like that. So is it an act, or which it very well might be, or is it just because she's from Queens, which I think is either the first or second most diverse place in America? Maybe Jersey City and Queens are like the two most diverse places in America. And is that just because of the people around here, whether they're Indian or Irish or she's Chinese, right? Chinese.
I believe so.
Is that just how people talk? Now, that might not be the case. She might have just taken on that persona when she wanted to become a rapper, right?
Yeah.
Or did she grow up around people speaking like that, and that's how she speaks? I don't know. But they are different, and it's important to and then the whole thing is like, well, and I know what's Miley Cyrus got and hers is a lot more blatant because she's like a country Disney kid who obviously didn't come from that culture. She didn't come from Queens, where she kind of adopted a hip hop black whatever persona, going through some shit. And then when she like was done with it, when it served its purpose, she's kind of jettisoned it and was like, all right, now I'm back to being Miley or whatever. I think that's different, and that I think deserves a lot more criticism than perhaps Awkwafina. I honestly don't know, because I know Awkwafina. I saw her in a really good movie called The Farewell. I don't know if you saw that.
No,
where she is in New York. I don't know if it's Manhattan or Queens or whatever it is, and she goes back to China because her grandmother's dying. The whole family goes back. She doesn't have the accent or anything. She just kind of sounds like she sounds like an American. Right. Like she actually gets made fun of for her Chinese in the movie because she speaks Chinese with an accent and isn't as fluent as she should be according to her family and stuff like that. So is the criticism, well, she just dropped the whole shtick when she wanted to do a more dramatic, serious role. That's a legitimate criticism, right?
Sure.
I honestly don't know.
Right.
But just to say like, oh, it's black accent, you can't speak that way. It's like, I don't know, people like that's like, oh, well, like when people always say like, I remember it was big with like Robert Griffin III, who won the Heisman Trophy. Like, oh, he's so articulate. He speaks white. It's like, he doesn't speak white.
Yeah.
Just like this is how he talks. Like it doesn't mean it's not a race thing.
Yeah.
So it's just your culture. I don't know. Maybe I have no idea where he grew up or whatever it was, or even if he grew up with people speaking in slang or whatever it is, he decided not to. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I just think sometimes you have to dig deeper than just like, does the color of the skin add up? No, then it's cultural appropriation.
Right. Exactly. So I believe one of the criticisms levied at her is that in interviews, she kind of loses the black accent. And I've listened to her a little bit, and it's like, yeah, it's not as noticeable there. So here's my take on it. It's like if it's for an artistic reason, I'm much more lenient about it. I'm much more like, okay, whatever, like, because she keeps playing characters, or at least she's played numerous characters where they come from Queens. It's like, okay, that's fine. Like that makes sense for you to talk like that. Fine. So and when she's doing when she's rapping, and it's again like maybe like the more ghetto aspects kind of creep in. It's like, yeah, okay, fine. Like that's again, it's part of the character that she's playing.
Yeah.
And like I wouldn't blame people for saying that's kind of tasteless or that's offensive or whatever. Like, sure, whatever, maybe it is, maybe it's not. I don't really care. Like when it comes to like you're doing it for a creative reason, I'm much more sort of like, yeah, maybe she's kind of being satirical. It's part of something like that.
Okay, so this is where I think it can get sticky because I think we're very much on the same page with like a character is a character, right? Like you want to play a character as that's fine. Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong. I think that's fucking acting. Like that's cool.
Yeah.
It's when the character becomes the persona. And this happens often. On a personal level, I know a couple of brothers and a couple of guys growing up who, I grew up, we're about the same age, in the like kind of mid 2000s, there's that big like Guido push. Like there's Jersey Shore, and I'm from New Jersey, and there's this whole thing about like Italian pride, and you wear the wife beaters or guinea tees. We need a better name for that shirt, but those are the only two names for it. And the headbands and the spray tans and the spiky hair. I had it. I don't know if any photos exist of it, but we all had it. And
Twitter make them resurface.
Yeah, right, exactly. It was actually called the Brooklyn haircut. You go and you get it was shaved on the sides and back, spiking, whatever. And there's this big thing. So like all of us who had Italian last names and whatever, it was like we took pride in it, but then some of our friends didn't. And they kind of, some of them started doing it as a joke. Yeah. And because they got positive feedback on this, I'm dating myself here. This is fucking MySpace, right? On like MySpace and stuff, where they got positive feedback from girls and things like that. It became them. Like they had joking names, like I'm not going to use real names here, like blah blah spikes, or whatever it is, like blah blah bag of donuts, right? That was actually no one's name, but like, you know what I'm saying, like kind of stereotypical Guido-y names. And then that's like what they went out as those people. Like they went to the Jersey Shore as those people. And it's like that today would be kind of like cultural appropriation, like, or would it not be, because you're around a bunch of people who do act like that and you just want to act like that because you're part of the community. Right. It does get sticky. I see that where it's like, no, you're not playing a character anymore, really. Right. That's who you are. So and then we saw this with, well, who's the famous and it's not always a racial thing or whatever like that, but who's the famous comedian? Dice Clay.
Andrew Dice. Yeah. Andrew. Yeah.
That's his character.
Yeah.
He was not performing originally as Andrew Dice Clay. That was a guy who he would take on that persona on stage with the leather jacket, right, and the cigarettes and all that, and it was so popular that he just became that guy. Right. And then we see that now with my favorite one. Well, I know I've talked about this on the pod before. One of my favorite things that's ever happened in the history of the world is Hilaria Baldwin, Spanish accent, and she just got caught up in it because she got positive feedback. She was just some wealthy white chick from Massachusetts, and she started doing, I don't know how it started, I don't know how any of this starts, but she started doing the accent, and she was, I guess, tanner, and her hair was dark, and her family was in Spain, even though they're not Spanish. There's rich people who had a house in Spain. She kind of just, I feel like domino by domino until you're on national television saying you don't know the word for cucumber. Like that's where it goes. Saying how you say this in English, like that's so offensive. It's just like and then she talks and she's just a normal American lady, right? But that's the thing, is that normal American white is not fun well, I don't know if it's ever fun or it's like you don't get points for that. So you have white people who have to adopt like Rachel Dolezal and numerous professors, at least 2 other professors who have been caught, who are just white ladies, and they need to not be white because of the points that you get for it, the social points that you get for it. And I get why Black people would be pissed at Rachel Dolezal. Like, it's not a character, you're not acting, and then you're taking jobs, and then it goes into that whole thing, right? You always But getting back to Awkwafina, so you're saying that when she interviews, she doesn't have the accent or the persona or anything like that.
Right. She's been accused of code switching.
Right, codes. Oh,
Yeah.
fucking code switching. That's another one of those goddamn things. That's like, yeah, code switching. Remember AOC when she's just AOC is just doing like exactly what Aquafina does in that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about? That video where she's like, "This is what community looks like.
Yeah.
This is what revolution looks like." Like, she doesn't talk like that. She's not even from fucking Bronx, you know. She's from like up to like Westchester County or something. And what's her, even Al Sharpton, or I think it was maybe Jesse Jackson, one of those guys.
I get those guys mixed up too,
I know I obviously know they look,
I know the difference between it, but like,
of course, but like who said this, gave her shit for it, like totally ripped on her for this. It's like, we know that that's not you, like, but then when it's okay, when it's someone like AOC, it's code switching. When it's someone else, it's cultural appropriation.
Right.
That's and also my favorite. And before I just keep, because I can just keep going on. The best is, and he's kind of gotten away with it, is Chet Hanks, who just was speaking with a Jamaican accent. It doesn't even make sense. It's one thing if you're like using an American black accent, at least you'd be like, well, all my friends are black and I'm from this neighborhood. Obviously you're not, you're Tom Hanks' son, but that doesn't even make, but it's almost so blatant that it's like, well, the balls on this guy, he gets away with it. I respect it. Like, so that was, like, that was amazing.
Forrest Gump, man. Like, how'd that happen?
He's speaking with a Jamaican accent. That was amazing. It's like, it's so absurd that it gets a pass.
This reminds me a lot. Have you seen that movie? That's old Steve Martin movie. It's called The Jerk. Came out in the late 70s.
In a very long time. There's like, I was born a poor black child. It's like the famous line.
But there are a lot of gags throughout the movie where there's one like in the second half of the movie where he's a millionaire and he's walking around his mansion. I think he's walking around like outside by his pool or something, and then he's talking to like all of his like business consultants, and then they're like, oh yeah, so profits are up and this and that, and he goes, okay, good, and so what about this thing? Oh yeah, don't worry, that'll be taken care of next week. Okay, good. And then I can't remember exactly what it was, but one of his associates says something racist about black people, and Steve Martin goes, wait, what do you mean those people? And he goes, oh, black people. And he goes, sir, you just happen to be talking to one. And then he beats them all up. But it's just like, I don't think that movie would get made today, but that's definitely one of those things.
You know what movie I'm watching? I'm finishing it tonight.
What's
it
that?
Didn't even come out. It came out exactly 10 years ago. Horrible Bosses.
Oh,
that movie won't get made today.
I know.
Jennifer Aniston sexually assaulting Charlie Day throughout it, which is hysterical. She calls him a faggot. Like, that would not fly. And it's a hilarious movie. I think we should also do an episode, by the way. I know we're like kind of planning other episodes on a current episode, but whatever, about how comedy movies have just taken a nosedive, because the 2010s were a horrible decade for comedy. There are some gems, of course, most of them in the first half of the decade. And I don't see anything positive come. I mean, it's only 2021, but we have 2 years, almost 2 years of movies now. Is there a single comedy that's good that's come out?
I'm gonna say no.
Like anything that's like a comedy, not something like a dramatic comedy. Like Palm Springs had some funny moments. I thought it was a very good movie, but like I can't think of was Good. I haven't seen Good Boys yet. That's supposed to be like the new Superbad, but which is Booksmart, I think, was even end of the 2010s. I thought it was very funny. But I think that's still like 2019, so it's not even like this decade. But I don't know, man. I think that's something we should talk about, because comedies were horrible in the past 10 years, past 11 years.
Because there are actually two movies that are close to my heart that actually have to do with Mexicans. The first one is The Three Amigos. that would not get made today.
That would not get made today.
Three white guys saving
Are
Mexican
any of
village.
them? Wait, it's Martin.
Martin Short, Steve Martin, and Chevy Chase.
Chevy Chase is the
Yeah.
thing. Really?
Yeah.
That would not get made today.
That would not get made today. And here's a more recent one, Nacho Libre with Jack Black. Jack Black playing a Mexican. That would
very
not
funny
pass.
movie.
I love that movie. And every Mexican I know who's seen that movie loves that movie. Nobody says, why did they get Jack Black to play a Mexican?
That's usually how it happens. It's usually just fucking white liberals complaining about, it's like, wait a minute, did you ask us?
Yeah.
It's like, did you ask the indigenous people? Did you ask the Mexicans? Did you ask the Chinese? The vast majority of them like it. They find it funny. They think it's like, hey, you're talking about our culture or whatever. It's cool to see these 3 A-list American celebrities talking about our culture, right? They're never like making fun. It's never in bad faith.
Yeah.
Some things can be tone deaf. That happens.
Sure.
But it's never in bad faith.
Yeah.
And I think, like, even movies where the point is to criticize the thing that it's showing. When, like, I'm thinking Blazing Saddles, right?
Yes.
Like 70s, mid 70s,
74, I think. Yeah.
They wouldn't make that today, even though it's criticizing racists and KKK and shit like that. That wouldn't get made today. Yeah. And those would be, some of the criticisms would be like, it's sexualizing a black man because the German woman wants to loves to have sex with a black man. It's like, oh my God, I could already see the fucking what's his name? Not Kendi, the other guy who's like more mainstream. Between the World, Ta-Nehisi Coates. Atlantic article about my body sexualized. This article might be written. Like, I can go check it. It's probably it's like a retrospective from like 2014, like a retrospective on Blazing Saddles of why it's problematic today.
Well, it's one of those things where, like, especially when you have like even if a movie is making fun of people of a particular marginalized group, especially like when you have members of that group in the movie who are like, it's like, but they're all in on the joke. Like, it's making fun of them, but they're in on the joke. They're okay with it. It's like, for some reason, that just kind of goes right over the heads of like the super hyper, like, woke people. I mean, with for example, the Three Amigos. It's like, sure, the 3 white guys, like, like they saved the day, and I'm sure somebody will find a way to complain and be, oh, that's the white savior thing. But at the same time, there are so many jokes throughout the movie where it's like they make, like, the joke is them being awkward white guys in like this little Mexican town, where it's like, like that's the joke. Like, it makes fun of white people, it makes fun of Mexicans.
I've obviously seen it. It was a very long time ago. I remember the last time I saw it, I was probably in elementary school. But do the Mexicans know that they're not Mexican? Is that the joke?
So it's actually it's
like a Nacho Libre. Jack Black is Mexican,
right?
And Three Amigos, do they just think they're Mexican, or are they supposed to be?
So what happened? It's actually it's a plot that's been used in a whole bunch of movies. It's been used in like Tropic Thunder and A Bug's Life. Hey, quick,
Tropic Thunder. Let's talk about Tropic Thunder. Tropic Thunder.
I know it's another problematic movie.
It's like threads. Tropic Thunder is one of the funniest fucking movies out there. It's very close to my heart because that came out like when I was in college. This is like kind of pre-streaming, like freshman year of college. I remember for football, the football team was there before everyone else, right? So we had nothing to do besides. Wait, can you say something? I can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, I accidentally muted my mic for some reason.
Oh, good. So anyway, all I'm saying is that, so this, like, back when we had DVDs and I had and we would watch it like every night, right? Yeah. But that movie, even though I don't know why I didn't think it's a perfect example. Yeah. Is obviously I'm getting to Robert Downey Jr.'s character.
Yeah.
He's a white American playing a white Australian playing a black American, which is genius. Yeah. And it wouldn't get, even though it's making fun of Hollywood. Yep. Casting, non whatever race or religion or whatever person and casting white people. It's making fun of that. Yeah. And yet there's this thread I think I saw on Twitter where it's like, oh boy, Zoomers finding out about Tropic Thunder. It's like,
I remember that.
How is this okay? But and that's what's your take on, so my take has always been, and I don't know if I've changed on this, is if you have to explain satire, is it good satire? And I don't know, because it's like, if it's that good and some people do fall for it, for instance, as you know, my burner Twitter account is satire, and it shocks me how few people realize it's satire, which means is that really good satire, or is it not satirical enough? Right. I don't know the answer to that. And I'm not even like, I honestly don't know. So it's like, is that brilliant in Tropic Thunder that some people, I mean, it is brilliant. I'm not trying to hedge on that. Sure. But it's like, if you have to explain it, does that mean you do a good job of it? And I don't know.
That's an interesting, and again, like we're planting all these seeds for further episodes. I feel like we could do a full episode on just like what is satire, what makes good satire, examples, because that's an interesting point where it's like, if it's good enough, if it's to the point where people go, oh, okay, I know what you're making fun of.
A good example is like the Colbert Report, right?
Yeah.
That growing up, when I was a kid, I honestly thought it was the conservative Daily Show.
I
didn't know. I did, like in middle school. I was like, oh yeah, Colbert Report's. So does that mean it was such good satire? And I think I'm leaning towards that. Like it was so good that the demographic that you're kind of making fun of doesn't realize it.
Yeah.
And maybe that is what satire is, right? Is that not?
You're just looking for a way to say like, oh, my burner Twitter account is great.
No. Let's go back.
I know what you mean.
Let's go back to the OG Shakespeare. Shakespeare wrote. He purposefully set so many of his plays in other countries, especially Italy, because if he set them in England, they would cut his head off because they would realize that he's criticizing the monarchy or criticizing the noble or whatever it is, right? But when he set it in Italy, the hot-blooded Mediterranean types, you can get away with it. And that is like, I don't know if that's necessarily satire, but it's kind of like you're doing it under the target's nose.
Right.
And yes, my burner account is genius. Of course, that's the point of all of this. But it's shocking to me, and I've pushed it so hard to ridiculousness, and still people are like, "Yes, this is what I'm talking." I'm like, how is this real? Like, I can't make it any more ridiculous. But anyway,
no, that's a good talking point. Yeah, I think that if it does fool people, I think it is at least a testament to some extent of how effective it is. Because if everybody gets it, I feel it's just sort of like, okay, but you were just being very heavy-handed. You're like, you said something ridiculous, but then you also turned to the audience and then you gave them a wink and a nudge. But it's like, if you really committed and people like believed what you said, or like the work that you're putting out there, I think that's probably the sign of like genuinely good satire. It cracks me up like Titania McGrath, that Twitter account.
I mean, that was my inspiration.
Yeah,
of course.
But like seeing like the large number of large accounts like agreeing with her.
Reference them later, but go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Like when you see some prominent feminist author agreeing with Titania McGrath.
Yes, it's like, who did, was it Brett Weinstein? I can't remember if it was him or someone of that ilk who was like, they wrote just ridiculous studies, I'm doing air quotes for the listeners, about, one of them was like about like gay dogs or something, like, and they got published in journals in like Portland. It's just like,
I know what you're talking about.
I was it Brett Weinstein? I can't remember.
No, it's people who are associated with the sort of IDW types. But it was James Lindsay, Helen Pluckrose. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was James Lindsay, Helen Pluckrose, and Peter Boghossian. It was the
Peter
Grievance
Boghossian.
Hoax.
Okay.
It was the whole grievance the grievance studies hoax, I think. But yeah, exactly. Whereas I've thought about doing something like that on Medium, of just putting out like weird intersectional poetry.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it was like, we're getting into. I was going to bring up a different topic where it's not even about. I don't like the word content anymore, but in this case, it's not content like social media content. It's like literally the content, the substance, I should say, of the work. Because I remember I say on every episode, I'm a writer, so I submit things. Or I just submit everything to the Reckless Muse because I wasted time submitting shit.
Because you're sleeping with the editor, so.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. And so much of it is about amplifying voices and et cetera. So I was like, okay, fine, that's great. Like, I believe everything should be blind and submit, and some of them are, and submit, just what's the fucking best. I don't care if every single article in the New Yorker is written by trans indigenous activists or if every single one's a straight white guy. Like, I honestly don't give a shit. Like, it should be the best writing. But then there was that guy, I forget who he was, and he was a poet, I believe, and he was like, white guy poet, if he was American or Canadian, and he was kept getting rejected, right? He changed his name to something like overtly Chinese.
Yeah.
And didn't change a word of the poems.
Yeah.
Got accepted immediately into
Oh,
several
Jesus
publications.
Christ.
It's like that just shows has nothing to do with the work.
Yeah.
It just has to do with identity, and that's so dumb.
It is.
Then you're making people who then do get published. It's like, well, am I actually being published for my work, or am I being published for my identity? And then it makes other people like not even bother, and then you're losing out on some of the best.
I think it's also condescending too to like members of that group.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, where it's like, I don't want to be. If somebody accepts my work, I don't want it to be because I'm Hispanic, I'm Latino, or it's so easy for me to be like.
I should cite that, because if I'm going to say that, I should find. But no, keep going. I should find like the actual thing, and then I can say it.
But it's one of those things. It's so condescending if you're a member of a historically marginalized group, and somebody accepts your work or they promote your work, and it's not because it was of quality work or it was it was original or anything like that. They had something interesting to say. It was just because you're supposedly because of your skin color or your ethnicity or your sexuality or some other ridiculous superficial thing.
I'm reading it's the Guardians from 2015. It's like, white poet used Chinese pen name to gain entry into Best American Poetry. Editors kept Yi Fen Chao's poem in the 2015 published today, even after the author. Okay, at least they kept it in. Even after the author revealed the identity to be Michael Derek Hudson. And it's it's like good for fucking him, man. It's dumb that they wouldn't,
Yeah.
Anyway, that's it. I wanted to make sure that I had that right.
Like the straightest, whitest, malest name.
Very funny. I could put that in the doc.
In the show notes,
or whatever. But anyway, I think that was kind of
funny.
Yeah. But we're talking about Aquafina, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know. I found her annoying in Crazy Rich Asians. I don't know her rap, and I thought she was very good in the Farewell. So I'm kind of split with her. I don't really. I did find it kind of annoying, but I think if you're going to start criticizing people, at least be well rounded about it. Like don't just use the buzzwords. I'm not obviously speaking to you. I'm speaking to the morass. Too
late. I'm offended.
The internet.
No.
Right.
I took it personally. No.
All right.
No,
There's
seriously.
the pod.
No, I agree with that. And here's the thing. It's not just like people are criticizing her about this. It's people are planning a boycott of Shang-Chi now.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up though. No, that's good. I am glad you brought that up. I think this is another kind of recurring theme, and I'm actually okay with that. Yeah. I'm okay with boycotts. I'm not okay with censorship. Boycott is not censorship, right? Right. If they are like when I just get first thing comes to mind is like I remember University of Michigan made the school pull a showing of American Sniper because shooting Muslims or whatever. That's wrong, right? Like that's censorship. That's taking as a few loud voices bringing because there's a big Arab American and Muslim American community in Michigan. So it's like, it's so fucking stupid, but and it's probably all white liberals anyway, with a couple of that population spokespeople, because that's how it usually works. You get a couple pissed off ones. Linda Sarsour is probably there or something. Speaking of which, I thought her today, she fucking fell off the map.
Really?
What was the last time you heard from her?
That's true. Because most of the time I heard of her would be like if Sam Harris or some other person would be making fun. Who's that awesome lady? She's from Africa, and she's been genitally mutilated. Yes, she's criticized her a lot. I heard Ali is awesome. Let's try to get her on the show.
She is awesome. Yeah. Oh, speaking of which, so I go rogue, by the way, and just ask people to come on the show.
Okay, cool.
O.J. Simpson did not respond to me.
He didn't.
He did not respond, and neither is the Taliban. So,
I'll
keep trying. I'll keep trying. I told OJ, I'm like, we're looking for dangerous artists. And I think he'd be a perfect fit for the show. A running back is like the artist of the football field. I don't know. It's
the art of murder.
I would take, the art of murder.
Getting away with it.
I honestly, OJ, if you're listening, please, Juice, come on the show.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
I would love to speak with you because we need to catch the killer. We need to catch. I mean, Joe, you live in LA.
Yeah.
He could be your neighbor.
Yeah.
He could be your roommate.
Yeah.
Who killed Nicole Simpson.
Yeah. None of my roommates look like him, but he could be just very clever though. So
well, we don't know what he looks like because we don't know who the killer is.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right.
But
So OJ, come on the show, please. But anyway, so I do go rogue and just ask people to come on the podcast all the
okay,
time.
cool.
I don't know
Good.
if you knew that.
No, that's fine. I'm cool with that. Yeah. We need content.
Yeah.
Our show's on the verge of bankruptcy. So.
What was I talking about?
Ayaan Hirsi Ali.
OJ Simpson. Oh, Linda Sarsour. No, even that was a fucking sidetrack. But Linda Sarsour, she was a big part of like the pussy movement or whatever it was with the pink hats and all that shit.
Yeah.
Like she just went AWOL.
Yeah,
I think because she was like really intense about Israel and stuff, and they were like, all right, we're not ready for that. But I remember I was working in the city. I was at an internship in law school on 42nd Street, and the CUNY, the CUNY, the City University of New York, they had something in the same building that I was in, and Linda Sarsour was there for something, and they were protesting outside the building. So I had to walk to the UN, and it was just like a tunnel of angry Israel supporters. Just I'm like, I don't know her. Like I have to see this lanyard. This means I have nothing to do with this. Like I have no idea who that is. Like, I mean, I know who she is, but like I'm not associated with her. Please stop yelling at me. But so I got on that because I was talking about Michigan censoring American Sniper, which I got on that because
censorship versus boycott.
So I think boycotting is 5. It's actually one of the few things that the average consumer can do when you have a problem with something. I think you should not be dumb about it. Like you shouldn't go cut the Nike symbol out of your socks because of Kaepernick. Like you just look dumb. Like just don't buy Nike, right? Do your silent protest. Say I'm not buying Nike anymore. No. Like don't make yourself, or do. I don't give a shit. Do whatever you want. Yeah. But boycotting I think is fine. So if they want to boycott the movie for whatever reason, I'm okay with that. I don't think that actually should get made fun of. I think, but trying to pull it down so other people can't enjoy it, that's a huge difference. Right.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm still gonna make fun of it though because it's fun. Yeah. But
I'm gonna make fun of it too.
No, and I even mentioned this in the article I wrote about Aquafina, which is like, I think that boycotting a movie simply because one of the supporting actors offended you for some little reason, I think that's petty. But I even say it. But at the end of the day, I'd much rather have people boycotting a movie rather than being like, this movie should be pulled. AMC should never show this movie. I don't want this movie on Disney Plus. Yeah, it's just kind of like, okay, well, if you're trying to ruin everybody else's fun. But
exactly. When it's like bomb threats at the theater or attacking people, shit, that's a huge difference than boycotting it all together. And the other thing about boycotting is that that's you as a consumer exercising your own personal choice. Like that's fine. Do whatever you want for you. You get to curate your own pop culture tastes and the types of pop culture that you consume. That's totally fine. It's when you start interfering with other people, that's when it stops being boycotting and starts being canceling and censorship and blah, blah, blah. I personally do my own, I don't make them all public, but if there's a commercial or something I see for a company, I was always interested in advertising. A bunch of my friends work in advertising. I took propaganda and advertising. I think it's really loved Mad Men, great show. So I find I give a lot of credit to good advertising campaigns and then I criticize bad ones. And there are some that, let's say it's too political or something I don't like, I won't buy. There's a beer commercial. I won't say what beer it is necessarily, but I don't like their commercials. It's very kind of political and dumb. I think COVID stupid. And I'm like, all right. And it was a beer that I actually used to drink, kind of in the regular rotation if it was out of bars. It's one of the standard ones. Yeah. And that's at every bar. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to buy that beer anymore. Right? It's not, I mean, if it was that good, some products are that good. I was like, all right, I'm still going to keep getting that product. But I don't need to buy that beer. And that's kind of my own site. Is there $40 a year that I'm not giving them? Are they going to feel that? No. But it's my own kind of silent protest. Sometimes that's all you can do.
Oh yeah, no. And I've definitely done that too, where it's just kind of I don't like this company anymore. Like if my money is going to go towards them promoting a dumb idea or something like that, then no, I'm just going to do this other thing. But
there are some companies though that, for instance, I haven't liked Coca-Cola's politics for everything. I'm still getting a fucking Diet Coke.
Yeah, I know.
It's that good. Diet Coke is that good. I'm sorry, Pepsi doesn't do it. I mean, you had a competitor who is as good, but I mean,
I totally hear you, man. Where it's I'm just kind of too lazy to go search for a better competitor. Says, let's stick with the same old. But like what you and I are doing versus what a lot of these other people are doing. It's like we keep that to ourselves. We don't go and be like, I'm boycotting this brand because it's because it's problematic. And it's just like, yeah, okay, you're just looking for points. You're just looking. It's just like.
And what also happens is when you start making all of that public all the time, you quickly fall into, well, then why aren't you doing it for this?
Right.
What about this movie? Well, because he's on your side, or she's on your side, or she supports like, and then you just kind of dig yourself into a hole.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like so. Now I can't think of an example right now, but I feel like that usually happens. It's always the what about, and it's like, yeah, it's kind of true. Like people criticize whataboutism, but it's kind of true. It's like whataboutism to me is more of a, well, do you stick to your principles?
Right.
And I think you should stick to your principles. Like I have certain principles and values that I don't give a shit if the Republican Party is upholding them or the Democratic Party is upholding them or neither of them or whatever it is. Like I will support the principles. I'll support the value. Yeah. And that I think that's what should be about more.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so I think it was like in 2019 with Gillette, and they released an ad about toxic masculinity.
That like super cringe ad. Yeah,
that was so bad. Yeah. And I remember like that was one of the times I was like, yeah, fuck Gillette. I'm just gonna buy the cheap ass brand instead. And then, but since then, like I probably bought a Gillette product at some point. Like, it's just
aren't Gillette wildly expensive though?
I think so. And I usually don't care. So I usually shop at Target for a lot of that stuff, and they usually have like the Gillette. Here's like the $10 Gillette stuff, and then here's like the Target brand that's exactly the same for $7. Yeah, let's go for the $7 one. But like I might have bought the Gillette thing at some point since then because I'm not so attached to a lot of my political ideas that I'm like that's it. Like I renounce my faith to this product for the rest of my life because it's like, yeah, whatever.
It's just it's like, when are these companies gonna? So I would actually like to know, because it's so common now. I feel like that was only 2019. I felt like that was longer ago. That's 2019.
Maybe it was longer. I can't remember.
I can't remember either, but I feel like that was one of the first big social justice-y commercials. Yeah. And when are these companies going to learn? And I say that not knowing their balance sheets. Yeah. But there have been enough, like the NBA has taken a huge hit.
Oh, yeah.
Politics.
ESPN
has
lost viewership.
And not just sports, but like a lot have, because of people very close to me who love sports are like, I don't watch that league anymore. Yeah. I'll do something else. Let's go to this sporting event instead of this one. So I would like to know though, because there are people then who, for instance, Colin Kaepernick's jersey, I'm going to bring him up because he was a big one in the past 5 years. Did skyrocket. Like people did go out of their way to buy his jersey compared to people who boycotted the Niners or whatever it was, right? So there is that. And I think for some people that works for some of these things. But I would like to know, do these companies see a bump in sales from their messaging? Because I can't imagine they do. I really don't think they I guess maybe it's because my views are never really the ones that are being promoted by companies really. Like I will, for instance, it's not a company, but it's an actor. Like I'll watch movies if they look interesting. I really, that's one thing where it's like, because if you go off politics of Hollywood, you won't watch movies. So
I know. Yeah.
But when an actor does have politics I like, and I'll bring up one. Mads Mikkelsen came out not recently, but he had a famous line about like PC culture and all that shit. So I loved Mads Mikkelsen. The Hunt, incredible movie. I think that's one of the first things we talked about actually.
Yeah, in the very first phone conversation, I think you recommended that to me. Yeah,
amazing movie, and he's just a fantastic actor. Everyone knows him now. That's a Danish movie, and he's obviously a Danish actor. And now Another Round came out, which is the Danish movie. So I think he's becoming known also for his foreign to us, of course, movies, not just because he plays a Bond villain and he plays Hannibal
Lecter, but anyway, Doctor Strange villain.
Is he Doctor Strange villain? Yeah. Okay. So like I will then even go more out of my way to support him because I think that's a great thing to hear, especially someone like him, like a famous actor. But I guess maybe I don't see all that much, right? Like, and usually if there is the messaging, it's like so far to the other side that's like I don't support that either. Where it's like the My Pillow guy or something. He's like fucking great, like Q guy. I think he's fun. I like anyone who does a lot of cocaine, but I think they're crack or whatever. They're always fun. But so I don't really get that. But I would love to see their balance sheets. It's like, we put out this statement that's whatever, Black Lives Matter, right? And we sell widgets. Do they see a bump in sales? Because I can only imagine it hurts.
I would think so, but
you would think they do see a bump in sales?
Maybe. So here it is from a different perspective. I think it was the CEO of Goya Foods, which came out who came out as a Trump supporter.
Right.
And again, that was very divisive. Like there were a bunch of people who were like, "Oh, I'm not going to buy Goya Foods anymore." But then there were a bunch of people who were like, "I'm going to support Goya Foods even more." I have no idea what the end result of that was. Where it's like, did it balance out? Where it's like, okay, it was just kind of business as usual. Like that month that statement came out. Like,
okay, but I don't think Goya is a good example because, like I was saying, there's so few companies, so few right-wing famous people that have a right that anytime it does happen, people do flock to it.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think we have to look at, when I say do they see a bump, I mean social justice.
Okay.
Because it's so mainstream and people are like, I just don't see someone being like, oh, they have a Black Lives Matter banner on their website, I'm gonna go support it. Because it's like they're already buying that thing.
Right.
I can only see it turning off people.
Yeah.
But they keep doing it. So maybe it does work. I don't know. Like, I honestly don't know. I want to see, like, when Pepsi came out, and that one actually backfired because that's supposed to be a social justice.
Right.
With what's her name? Not Kardashian, Jenner.
Caitlyn?
I'm talking about. No. Where she like hands the cop Pepsi, and it's like, yay, no more police brutality. You don't remember that?
I vaguely remember that.
Oh, it was a few years ago. It was like back. It was black. It was, obviously, they don't have Black Lives Matter in the commercial, but it's social justice thing for.
There's definitely reacting to that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just so tone deaf with Kendall Jenner. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. Leading the pack, and they're all protesting. She heads the cop, the row of police. She heads with a Pepsi, and it's like, yay, no more police brutality. We did it, Pepsi. It's like the end of the Breakfast Club. Like, yeah.
So I'm gonna draw a little bit from my own personal experience, my lived experience for the woke people living out there.
Yes, of course.
Who are listening to this.
I only want to hear your lived experience. That term doesn't make any fucking sense. All your experience is lived.
I know, yeah. So for those of you who don't know, before Ben and I started this blockbuster podcast, I worked for a Silicon Valley startup, and which is kind of like sort of ground zero for a lot of woke ideas. And even though this is my own personal experience, this seems to match up with other people's experience who worked in that environment, which is that the heads of a lot of big companies, they tend to be sort of apolitical. They're just sort of like, I just want the best. I'm just going to go with whatever's going to make us the most money, sort of thing, right?
Businessmen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what businessmen do. They tend to be, a little more libertarian, just sort of like whatever, as long as I can, it's the bottom line, right? Mm-hmm. But a lot of this woke stuff tends to come from, these like the lower down millennial types, the recent graduates who brought their college, bullshit politics with them into the office.
State to San Mateo Valley or whatever.
Exactly, yeah. And so there was a lot of that at the startup that I worked at, where like the top guys were pretty apolitical. We're like, yeah, whatever. We just want to put out the best. I probably won't say what it is, just to be safe here. But like, we're like, yeah, whatever. We just want to get the most people in. Like, we're not here to make a political statement. But there was a lot of push. Like, well, we need more women here, and we need more diversity over there. And then like the heads were like, kind of like, okay, fine. You guys keep pushing for this, fine. We'll do what you want, sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if that's kind of what a lot of these major corporations are going through. So the company I worked at, it was a smaller startup. It was not a major brand, but I wouldn't be surprised if what we're seeing, if with like major tech companies or these other bigger brands, where it's like the heads are sort of like, yeah, let's just do it because this department is bitching about diversity, so fine, let's put out an advertisement about diversity. So I wonder if that's where a lot of the stuff is coming from like the lower down millennial types.
Oh, well, 100%. And I think corporations eat this up. They love the DEI stuff because they don't actually have to change anything for their bottom line, really. You just, okay, we hired this race, we hired this thing, this person, and that's it. And they still, you know, the joke is Raytheon putting a gay pride flag on their missile that's gonna go drill a Yemeni wedding or something. It's like, yeah, but we're allies. Like, well, we're the good guys here. We just killed 12 Yemeni children, but Black Lives Matter, right? And that's why, I mean, we have wow, here we go. Hold on, this brings up, give me a second. I'm actually glad that hold on, I need a second.
Okay. All right, so while Ben is not here, I'm going to talk all kinds of crazy shit about him. So this one time we spent a crazy weekend in San Diego.
Just see that I'm
hey, Ben, how's it going?
Not. Okay, so while I didn't, so it's not on here, but I can add it. But okay, so I've been saying it recently. So I made a Hitler, Nazi, and Holocaust jar. So whenever there's a reference to Hitler's, Nazi, or the Holocaust, you have to put $1 in the jar. Right? Okay. And if you're listening or you're watching, you can Venmo me, and I will put your $1 in the jar. I want to make something very clear. This is not a it's not going towards any neo-Nazi or Hitler enthusiast or Holocaust denier fund. This is because 99.9% of references to these three things are dumb and not true, because these things were so horrible, because they were so bad and so terrible that to make references to them in 2021, unless you're talking about history, are misguided. So that's why I made the jar. Why did I bring up the jar? Not that I was saying any of these necessarily, but I was going to talk about fascists. So I figured, you know, it's close enough. I can add the F word to it.
Put me down for $3.
Wait, why?
With Future 5?
What reference did you make? We said no Hitler references.
I know.
I've already made several.
Before you and I did this, but I don't care. Put me down for another $5 though too. So it's okay.
It doesn't have to be retroactive. You didn't know.
No, it's fine. Because I plan on continuing that work. Okay, so here's what I did. But I did this in a lot of seriousness though. So I have a planned series, and I did the first 3 installments of it, which was comparing what a lot of woke people are doing to the arts, to what the Nazis did to the arts. But this is just the arts, though. This isn't like I'm not comparing Trump to Hitler. I'm talking about the methods towards and like the attitudes towards the arts. Sure.
And that's more of a historical comparison. That's like, if it's like, book burning, like, the Nazis burned books, and by you,
that's what I'm focusing more on.
Okay, that's different. And fine. It's more like, kids in cages, or like the Holocaust. Like, no, it's fucking not. Or it's like, Trump is Hitler. It's like, no, he's not. Like, not at all. Why I was bringing up fascism was because I very much believe we do live in a fascist country, just not in the way that most people think, not in the racial purity way, which is really only Nazism. Like, that's not even, other fascist countries didn't have that. Italy didn't have that. The Germans look down on the Italians. Like, fascism is about the blending of government and corporations, usually with a military enforcement, right? And that's exactly what we have in this country. Wall Street loves big government, which is, they love, Wall Street donated huge, and every major corporation, maybe with a select few, but loves the Democratic Party. And we have the biggest military in the world that, if you notice, and we won't get too much into politics right now, but the corporate media, the only time they've ever criticized Biden since he started running for president was when he ended a war. Ended a war, and they lost their shit. All the other shit, they don't criticize him for. But he ends a war, God forbid, and they criticize him and talk about disapproval numbers and impeachment and all of that shit. So it just shows that there's a reason that, like, certain things that are popular with the government become popular with corporations. And if you start, and that's why I get so intense about when I see things about Australia deploying troops in the streets. If you start doing that, we're just a fascist country. That's what it is. Because you're using the military to enforce your your laws.
Yeah.
Which you don't do that. So that's why
Right.
I get so like, and that's why I fucking rip on Australians.
Yeah.
Which I told Bridget Fedesi. I said, maybe you shouldn't be listening to me because I openly discriminate against Australians. Sorry to our 500,000 Australian listeners out there. I don't know if there are 500,000 of you in Australia, but I'm joking. I know there's like 24 million or something.
I'm going to distance myself from Ben. I love the Mad Max movies. Those are great. I love Australia.
Yeah, Mad Max are very badass. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right,
yeah.
fine. Mel Gibson's probably not the best Australian.
AC/DC.
Speaking of Holocaust deniers.
Hey, speaking of Australia, though, so this is still related to pop culture stuff. So last summer, I got invited to a pool party at some dude's house in North Hollywood, and it was a friend of a friend of a friend who kind of which is how I got into this pool party. And the guy whose house it was a pretty nice place, but he wasn't like a famous guy, but he had a pretty nice place in North Hollywood, and he's an Australian guy, and it turns out that he was the guitar tech for a whole bunch of famous bands, including AC/DC, the Beach Boys, and he's just been on the road for like 40 years or something like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
And he had all kinds of crazy cool stories of going on the road with all these rock and pop bands. And then here's the thing: so he didn't play guitar at all, but he was telling me about all these amazing guitars that he had, and he goes, "Yeah, you want to see my guitar room?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I go into his room, and he has all these legendary guitars from like the 50s and 60s and 70s, all of it original. And so I'm like, of course I'm in heaven. I'm just like, oh my God, there's probably like $1 million worth of guitars here. And he goes, 1.6, mate. And I was like, holy shit, like he actually had it appraised.
Yeah.
And he goes, I got to show you my room where I keep all my amps. I was like, oh my God. So he had a garage, and it was just, again, filled with just amplifiers, old amplifiers that rock stars gave him. Like, oh, this amp doesn't work as well as it used to, so here it is.
I'm joking, Australians. I don't hate you all. I'm just projecting.
I know it's the Australian government. It's the Australian like the crazy measures.
Yeah, it's some of them too. But yeah.
I know.
Listen, they rip on us just as much, by the way.
Oh yeah.
As an American, we get ripped on by every other nationality. So I'm just,
which is fine because we're better than everybody. So I don't really care.
True.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah, Australians are cool. No, they're cool. I mean, like, have you met Australians? Like they're
no New Zealanders. Oh, wait, I actually don't. I did know. I grew up with one New Zealand kid.
Oh yeah.
He was cool. Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah.
I liked him.
But hey, speaking of the Taliban.
Oh yeah.
Perfect segue. I don't think anybody noticed.
Right. Yeah.
We had there's this guy, Nazar Mohammad.
Nazar Mohammad. So Nazar Mohammad is now one of my heroes. Yes. If you haven't heard about this, he was an Afghani comedian, and I believe maybe a police officer or something in their police force.
Yeah.
He was a big TikTok, I don't know if star is the right word, but TikTok personality. And he was recently executed, obviously, by the Taliban. And I thought he was the perfect embodiment of what we want to achieve with this podcast. And that's not just dangerous artist, but fearless, because that's what he epitomizes. He was literally in the face of extremism and certain death. He was joking, really mocking, I should say. He was mocking his captor. So he was basically arrested in his home in the middle of the day or night, I forget, dragged into a car, guys with AK-47 sitting next to him, and he starts mocking them, and they literally start smacking him. They're smacking him in the face, and he's mocking them, and he gets taken, and he's executed.
The firing squad. Yeah.
I've heard firing squad. I've heard throat slit. It doesn't matter. He was extrajudicially executed, and really just is it's terrifying. Well, so it's kind of like, why are we bringing this up? We're not just bringing this up to be a downer. One, I think we should say his name. And all comedians, or not just comedians, anyone who's public with their art. You could be a writer, a screenwriter, a musician, a comedian, anyone who puts themselves out there and then who doesn't take on the mob, who either sits back and says nothing or who engages in it, which is because there are like woke comedians and shit like that. So you guys out there, and I mean that all genders.
Yeah.
From New Jersey, that's how we talk. You guys out there, this is the end of your bullshit.
Yeah.
You're canceling, you're censoring. Like the end point is killing. I know that sounds extreme and it sounds scary, but as we've only gotten more extreme as a culture for these things, where now it's not letting someone like Ben Shapiro speak at Cal Berkeley or something like that.
Right.
It gets to the point where it's like, it's not just, it's silencing you permanently. And yeah, will we ever reach that in America? I sure as hell hope not. But there were comedians in other countries too. And fuck, I owe $1 to the jar because I'm about to make a Nazi reference. But if you've seen Cabaret, Germany, parts of Germany were a very liberal, open place.
Yes.
Before that, like the swinging 20s, and they shut that shit down and arrested those people, and many of them were also murdered.
Yeah.
It's not that long ago, and it can happen. It happens all over the place.
Yes.
I know the famous picture is like women in Tehran wearing mini skirts, and then it's, before the Iranian Revolution, and then after, you came and, well, you can't see their faces, but they're all covered and everything like that.
Yeah.
It can happen here, which is, and if you read the book, it can't happen here. Obviously, it can. That's the point of the book. Is this extreme shit can happen here? And no, I'm not saying that Antifa is the Taliban, but that's the end point if you keep going in this direction. And it's dragging comedians who criticize you and your views, and it's shooting them in the head or it's slitting their throats. And I don't mean to be this extreme, but it does scare me because all it takes is more positive reinforcement and people like fucking Joe Biden saying Antifa is an idea. Well, so is what the fucking Taliban believes. That's an idea too, right? Yeah. Ideas can be dangerous. That doesn't mean that you shut them down, but they can be dangerous when they're put to practice, right?
Yes.
Like Ben Shapiro has ideas, but he's not out there hurting people, right? Or Douglas Murray, or even left-wing people, Meghan Murphy, get shut down. Like they're not out there hurting people, but the people who want to shut this stuff down, want to shut down jokes, want to shut down bits and movies. This is where you're going to end up.
Yes.
That's all I'll say about it. But I thought we should bring it up because in the face of his accusers and his death squad, Nazar Mohammad was mocking them, and I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think that every person who makes art should know who he is.
Yeah, no. So I was so when you texted me about this earlier in the week about topics to talk about for this episode, I was like, oh, that's an interesting topic. We should talk about that. And then when I read the article, I was really moved by that. And I'll be sure to put that in the description in the on YouTube. But I read the article and then I watched the video. So he had a reputation of making fun of the Taliban, and even when he knows he's going to get killed, he's still making fun of them.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is an artist who's going down swinging. He's not going to bend the knee. He's not going to apologize. He's not going to say, "Oh, I'm sorry. I take back what I said. It was problematic."
Which, and I want to be clear. If he did, I would understand. He has a wife and children.
Yeah.
Right. This isn't like,
and he's going to die. This isn't just like he's going to get his money.
This isn't like a Twitter apology where you just have to, do the part because NBC and they're going to fire you anyway. Like, this isn't that. He's leaving fucking children. He could have pled. And it's just, the courage is, unbelievable. Literally, if I didn't see it, I wouldn't believe it. Right?
Yes.
It would just seem like a nice story that would be in is it Khaled Hosseini? I'm sorry if I messed up his name. I love his books. The guy who wrote The Kite Runner and A Thousand Splendid Suns.
Yes.
I believe that's his name.
Yep.
He's an Afghan writer. Afghan American, and
Mhm.
it sounds like something that'd be in one of his books.
Right. Exactly.
And it's not. It happened last week or something, maybe this week. And I just it's I have nothing else to say about it. It's just really moving. And yeah,
you brought up a good point about like how this is the end point here. And
we keep going in this direction.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And it rings true with something that I've been thinking about lately as well, especially with a lot of this woke stuff. And to be fair, I see it on the extreme right as well, but I don't see it as much because the extreme right
that too.
Yeah, of course, but the far right doesn't have as much institutional power as the far left.
That's why. Yes. But they cancel. The right wing cancels too, and we should talk about that more.
Yeah, absolutely.
You kind of answered it, but go ahead.
Yeah. But one of the biggest criticisms I have with the woke ideology is that its adherents don't have a limiting principle on their ideas. It's like the goalposts. I just mean like the goalposts keep shifting. It's not like they say,
well, yeah.
All we want is just for this person to be, we want them to be held accountable, and that's such a vague term.
Yeah.
And that starts turning into they need to be shamed. They need to be forced to apologize. They need their comedy special to be taken off of Netflix. They need to be banned from this. Where it's like, where do you draw the line where you say, okay, look, I'm just saying I don't want this voice to be heard. But it's like, at what point do you say, okay, we've gone too far? I've yet to see a single woke person, or at least a prominent woke person, say, we've gone too far with this person. We're trying to cancel them.
I've seen a little of it, and I have seen some people come around. I think a big one. Now, again, it was only the example I'll use is Al Franken. Like that was a combination of the woke and the Me Too, and there have people said like, no, this got out of hand. Like he was not Harvey Weinstein. Like this. I think Me Too was the biggest equivalent to kind of like the witch hunt. I'm doing air quotes here, where it got like you started putting everyone together, like truly evil people.
Yes.
Right. With people who did something that is like maybe a little gross, wrong, definitely wrong, not cool. Like at worst, not cool.
Right.
Like you're right. Like Louis C.K.
He didn't commit a crime.
Like Louis C.K., who I love, and I'm trying not to be biased because I love his comedy. He's my favorite comedian of all time. He got consent for all of that.
Yeah.
And that's why he even jokes about it. He's like, even if they say it's okay, maybe still don't do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so it's not even like he's not fucking Harvey Weinstein. He's not who's the one who the CIA murdered in the prison, who knows all the fuck Island. Yes, fuck Island.
Oh, the suicide guy.
Suicide. Air quotes.
And he had that.
the Clintons had him murdered. Fuck.
I know. Yeah, I knew you were talking about. He had that portrait of Bill Clinton.
We talk about him like every day. I don't know. The CIA and the Clintons had him murdered. Epstein. That's it.
Yes.
Yeah. Like.
I just remembered it because of the stupid hashtag Epstein didn't kill himself or whatever.
Well, it's the meme where it was like it's one of my favorite ones. I know I do a lot of verbal memes and verbal gifts here, but it's like the arms. It's like right wing people, left wing people, knowing that Epstein did murder himself.
Exactly.
It's like he did kill himself. It's like it's true. It's one of the few things that both sides agreed on.
Yeah. But yeah, no, getting back to your point about like this is the end point. It's like to any person out there who considers themselves woke. All I ask is that like you're willing to say, you know what, this has gone too far. Like if you're willing to define when you think certain behaviors have gone too far, and like when this is acceptable, anything past that is unacceptable. When
they'll say when they say they've gone too far, when it comes for them.
Yeah.
When it comes for them, that's when they'll say this has gone too far. And that's what I'm trying to tell. It'll come for you.
Yes.
You can join, you can ride the wave for now. Right. It will come for you because as you put it, the goalposts keep getting moved.
Yeah.
And you will not catch up one time. You will slip up once. You will say Latino instead of Latinx. Yes. You will forget the I in the LGBTQIA plus whatever.
Two pluses now? There are 2 pluses, yes.
Dude, I'm not even joking. So I wrote a dystopian novel, which I'm working on the sequel right now. And in the novel, I swear to God, it takes place 100 years in the future, or when I was writing it, 2119, so 98 years in the future now. I put it, and there's a part of the world that's like, it's a lot of extremes. That's what dystopian novels are, right? So there's super fascist areas, there's a super progressive area. It's literally called progressive. I don't just mean to talk about my own work here, but there's a point to it.
Yeah.
I wrote in it BIPOC plus.
Yeah.
That became a thing. I never saw that. And I saw that on Twitter. I published that novel earlier this year, but I was writing it. Like, that was probably included at earliest 6 months to it, probably a year ago now, right? It's not like I put that in. Like, after you write it, you edits, and you can add some stuff. And I saw that on Twitter. I saw BIPOC plus. I'm like, I wrote that into a novel that's supposed to be dystopian. That's supposed to be absurd. On multiple sides, far right wing, far left wing and shit. So it's just like, this stuff does come true. Like, this shit does come true. But anyway, so they will decide, as in whoever the blue check is. It's gone too far when it comes for them. And then what we have to do, as in, I hope the vast majority, and the reasonable net, whether doesn't matter what you are,
right?
Reasonable, have to accept them, have to be forgiving, because that's not what they're getting, and say, look, it's okay over here. You can be a Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Green, but it doesn't fucking matter. Be reasonable and objective.
Yes.
And we will accept you, right?
Right.
And that's so try not. Sometimes it's so hard because you just want to be like, I fucking told you so. We told you so. This is gonna happen to you. But so many people who were super woke. I think like Kilstein. I forget his first name. Was it Jeremy or something?
Jamie Kilstein.
Jamie Kilstein.
Yes.
He was one of them. He is the epitome of this. He was. Constantly on Twitter, getting in progressive arguments, and he eventually didn't keep up, and they came for him, and he said, holy shit, what have I been incubating? What have I been a part of? And now he's very outspoken against that stuff.
And it's I've talked about this with some friends of mine who are very woke, or I'm sorry, who are very anti-woke. So it's like, I'm totally willing to defend people who I think were wrongfully accused of this and that or whatever. But if it's a woke person and the mob's just coming after them, like, I'm usually just kind of like, fuck them. And there's that part of me. It's like, I understand the impulse of like, look, Sarah Silverman, like, you contributed to a lot of this woke culture, and now it's coming after you. Like, good riddance. Like, did
you just pick her?
No. She got in trouble. She's gotten in trouble a few times. She did an act, some kind of sketch where she was in blackface.
Oh shit! Really?
Like in the early 2000s or something like that. Yeah.
Oh my god, the shit for this.
I know. Well, here's the thing about the sketch. I don't remember too much about it, but I know that like the point of the sketch was that she was playing an offensive person. Like, it wasn't like she was doing it just to be fun. It's like she was playing an offensive person. Yeah.
It's like in Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Like, they're doing it. Mac plays Danny Glover's character from Lethal Weapon.
Right.
But it's like, they know it's in bad taste.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but she's gotten criticized for that. She got blowback because she was cool with letting Louis C.K. jerk off in front of her.
What? That's kind of victim shaming.
I know. Yeah.
In a way, what the fuck? Like, that's like, I don't even know where that's like. Do you know what that makes me hungry for? I love a good intersectional pretzel. I love give some mustard and salt on that. Just like, she's the victim, but she's the intersectional pretzel.
Anything that complicates the Me Too narrative is like, okay, no, sorry, we only want pure voices here. We want you out because she was talking about how, like,
died with Biden.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly.
They didn't like Tara Reid. Like, no, okay, so you have no credibility.
Right.
No credibility whatsoever.
Right.
But anyway, sorry.
But getting back to my original point about like, I understand the impulse of like telling woke people like, yeah, well, I told you so. Like, I told you it's gonna come for you. But at the end of the day, it's like we gotta be willing to stick up for the people that we disagree with.
So I guess I'll amend what I'm saying. Like, you have to accept if they don't kowtow and like all of that shit. If they are like, wait a minute, this is wrong. That wasn't my intent, or that was out of context and stuff. And then they don't give in, then you accept them. Then it's like, okay, it's okay. Like, you'll be okay. But if it's like groveling and which happens all the time.
Yes. And
it's like, no, you're just one of them. Like, go in your religious cult. Like, that's.
So my roommate told me a story and fuck, I wish I knew more about this, but what he was telling me about, there was a female writer for Robot Chicken who got canceled.
Sounds familiar, but
not too long ago. But here's the thing: she kind of stayed woke even after because I guess somebody pulled up something about her that she said years ago, and like, oh, that was offensive, you're problematic. So then she ended up, I don't know if she lost her job or if she quit, but she was still like, well, it's good. Like, I'm sad that I'm no longer writing for Robot Chicken, but it's still good because what I said was offensive and this and that. It's like, oh, come on,
then
like,
fuck them. No, fuck her.
Exactly.
Like that. Then
like,
she's
that's like, okay,
go. That's like, thank you, sir. I have another. Like, then you just go.
Yeah, exactly.
You go to see if they take you back, lick their boots, whatever. Like, then fuck that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I'm being held accountable for my actions. It's like,
exactly.
How are you gonna pay your rent?
Right.
Like, let's see where you get hired then, because everyone else who's hiring in that field is woke.
Right.
Like, and they're gonna give you shit for, you doing this. So
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe she's doing fine. She's probably doing fine. But
yeah. But no, you're definitely right about that. Like if and it's not about politics. Like, I don't care if you're still very progressive, if you're a Democrat, whatever. But if you're willing to be like, yeah, I was involved in this woke thing, but it got taken too far, and like, it's just, I think cancel culture is dumb, and we need to be able to forgive each other. It's like, okay, all right,
dude,
cool.
There's a point. I don't know if I've said this on podcast. I looked into joining Antifa at a time.
Oh, really?
Like, there was a point where I always had issues with Antifa. Like, I was never woke, but I was definitely a progressive. I was and I did say this, I think, in that with Alma in that episode, where it was like, I was very progressive, but I was never like shut down speech. I always thought the college stuff was crazy. So I want to give myself credit there. Like, I'm not giving myself too, because I do cringe about some of my takes and opinions back then, which wasn't that long ago. But I was never crazy in that sense. Like, I was always for free speech, and it was maybe back when I thought, like, well, the left wing is for free speech, right? Like, stupid like that. But there was a point where I considered joining Antifa, and my issues with them more was, at the time, this was like big, when it was like, well, why aren't you guys protesting like extremist Muslim stuff? Like, that was my biggest turn off with them. I was like, okay, no, I get the anti-Nazi Confederate like, I was in the South, so it's like Confederate statue, like, I'm all for that, right? Like, I get that stuff. I don't know if I do, but like, okay, fine, want to go fight neo-Nazis. And this was like, there was a time where, like, Richard Spencer, like that time, like, they were at rallies doing Sig Heil. Like, would still fight that shit, right?
Of course, yeah.
Like punching Nazis, stuff like that. But it's like, well, there's also ISIS, and there's also a lot of shit here and stuff, and you don't say dick about that. That was what really held me back from it. It felt it should be fighting extremism and fascism, which is what I mean, fascism, they're not really fascist, but like religious extremism, racial extremism, right? And because they weren't doing that, I was against it. Now I'm against them for many other reasons.
Oh, yeah.
So I've made, and I kind of look at my dominoes, where like, my first big thing that happened was I graduated law school. That was a big one. The second was, because you're in like this social justice, especially the school I went to, like social justice incubator there, whatever. That was a big one. But then my big first, like, I don't like the term red pill moment in this case. I'm fine. People do have red pill moments, but mine's more gradual. Was the Covington Catholic, Nick Sandeman thing, where it was so blatantly wrong.
Yes.
And I remember writing a tweet that I'm not proud of, that was like something snarky, like, I'm a pacifist, but I would punch Nick Sandeman in the face, or something like that, right? Like something really cringy and shitty like that. And Nick, I apologize for tweeting that, and I'm glad you sued CNN and all.
Come on the show, Nick.
Come on the show. Actually, shout him on. But that was my first, like, wait a minute, maybe I'm not getting the full story, right? It's not like, oh, now I'm a right winger, which I'm not now. But it's like, it was like, okay, I'm going to start questioning things a little more.
Yes.
After that, little by little, the other big one, which fucking red pilled a lot of the country, was actually racism is the virus. It's like, oh, no, you have to stay until now you can go out and be shoulder to shoulder with people because racism. Like, well, what the fuck are you talking about, right? Right. And that got a lot of people to go like, wait a minute, what's going on here? We said to stay in our homes for 3 months, but now you can go protest because racism's like, that doesn't make any. That's not science. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So,
but if you go to a Trump rally, then it's a super spreader event.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yes, and that was the whole thing. But and now obviously many other things. Why do I bring this up? Not just talk about myself, but to say that like people do come around, because like I was very much agreed with probably 85, 90% of a lot of the progressive stuff then.
Yeah.
Not all of it, but a lot of it. And then it's kind of like, well, you know, new viewpoints. Some people hear new viewpoints and they say, no, I still like all this stuff. Some people new viewpoints are like, oh, it's a good point. Oh, maybe I'll listen to this podcast. Maybe I'll read this book, right? So that's why I'm like, we shouldn't just, well, you were never with us, so now you can't be with us, right? Like,
exactly. Yeah.
And I mean with us, not to pick, but it's like just objective reasonableness. Like you don't have to be a certain thing. You don't have to believe a certain thing, a certain letter next to your name. Just like not that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because that's dangerous. Yeah.
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 No, that's a great point. And I mean, like when you look at my Twitter feed, and I'm sure yours is probably pretty similar, but it's like there are people who are very progressive who I follow, and people who are very conservative who I follow, and people who are very libertarian. All different
types of people. Yeah.
And for me, it's not so much whether I agree or disagree with them. It's more about like, are you reasonable? Because there are some things that are very left leaning that I'm like, I agree with that. But there are some things that are defined that are decidedly very right leaning. I'm like, no, that makes sense too. And then I have a strong libertarians in me too. At the same time, each side has its wackos too. So
it is interesting to see people who I follow, like they get into it sometimes, and they're both. I know, for instance, too. I don't like just talk like I know James Lindsay and Kathy Young get into it a lot, and I follow both of them, and I like their takes on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see that, like, okay, and that's good. I think it's good that like your entire feed isn't just
everybody agreeing with you,
right? Everyone agreeing with you. It is good to say, oh, that's a good point Kathy made, or James is right on this thing, or I'll follow like David French and is it Chris Rufo? Like they had a debate recently,
on Barry White's podcast.
I think Barry White's podcast is incredible, by the way.
It's great.
She's great. And I catch myself, I'm like, they both make a lot of really good points.
Yeah.
Like I think sometimes Chris Rufo can be a little hyperbolic, but I kind of get it.
Yeah.
But they make, and sometimes I think David French, right? He's like,
can be kind of woke. He's a little woke sometimes for conservative. He's
sometimes it's a little like, I don't think he's taking this seriously enough.
Yes. Yeah.
And also you have to remember I don't want to talk about his other guys, but he lives in a very red area. Actually, he lives in like suburban Tennessee.
Right.
Where it's like, okay, but that's not the problem. Like, okay, that's not LA. That's not New York. That's not even like suburban Dallas or something, right? So anyway, but I think the point is that it's good to see different viewpoints, and that kind of and that it lets you make your own ideas and constantly be editing them, like not editing, but constantly kind of rethinking them. That's good. Reforming them is the right word. Anyway.
But at the end of the day, Nazar Mohammad, you are a goddamn hero.
We love you. Rest in peace, Nazar.
I hope you got all of those virgins in heaven. And
is that I don't know. Is that their interpretation?
I thought it was based on.
That might be like an extremist thing.
That might be an.
I don't know. Put that on hold. We're not Quranic scholars.
I know. But here's the thing. Wherever you are, I hope you're happy. And the artistic world, the creative world, lost a major figure. Even though he didn't have he's not Miley Cyrus. He was definitely an important voice, and he definitely embodies so much of what we try to promote here on the Reckless Musecast. Of just he was a guy who was willing to he was fearless. He wasn't afraid to take risks. He was dangerous. And even when he faced death, in a very literal sense, he went down swinging. And that's something that those of us in the West, we need to learn from that. No matter how bad the mob
should be fucking taught in schools. This is the kind of shit that should be that's the kind of guy that you put on the Google banner or something. Yes. That's the kind of person that you make a day for.
Fuck Kanye West and Donda or whatever the fuck it is. It's this is a guy who actually literally died for his art. And I never use the word literally because I hate that fucking word so fucking much. But this is a guy who actually died for his art. Art and pop culture needs more of that. And I'm not saying that you need to go out and get killed.
You don't have to be a martyr, but sometimes it's okay to be a figurative martyr. We don't need people dying, of course not. But it's like okay to stick to your guns, like like keep mocking the mob, like don't
And I think this is also a great lesson in for us, like people in the U.S. and just in general in the West, where we have it unbelievably good compared to a lot of other countries. If you are a creator and you're putting work out there and it pisses off people and the mob comes after you, I'm telling you, do not give in to the mob. Ignore the mob.
You're probably doing something right.
Exactly.
Doesn't mean it might not be everything right. There are people who just are offensive to be offensive, but you're probably doing something right.
Yes. And here's the other thing about the mob too, is that if you ignore them for a few days, they go away. Like maybe your name's trending on Twitter for a couple days, but after a while they go away because you didn't apologize, you didn't give in. So now that the mob knows that they have no power over you, and for you it's business as usual. Fuck the mob. Tell them to go suck a dick. Literally. They will ignore you. Yeah, seriously.
Suck a literal dick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they will. They'll get pissed off, but then they'll wander off and find another target. Because I've read studies about this, and again, like another episode topic, but like when people are demanding an apology, like I don't know if it's like narcissism or something like that, or something, but it's like people who demand apologies from other people, when they get the apology, it doesn't satisfy them. It's not like, oh, it's a personal thing, but we talked about it and now everything's cool. It's like I'm demanding an apology from you, and even when I get the apology, it's still not good enough. So I'm gonna hold that over you now. Whatever you do, I'm gonna be holding that to you. So like if you do not give them the apology, you also manage to keep your power as over your own career, over your own craft. So don't give in. Like this is a guy who died for his art, and as terrible as that is, you have it better. You have it much better than that. So, don't give in to the mob.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, how many dollars do I owe for the Nazi jar?
I think 37.
Do I need a new name for the Nazi jar? Holocaust jar doesn't sound much. Hitler, I don't know, but yeah, I got to put some in there. But it's supposed to be a deterrent. Yeah. And I don't know what I'll do with the money. Not an accelerant, but yeah. All right, man. Is that it? Yeah, I think that was. I'm very, very proud of this episode. I think it's a very important one. I think it's gonna go down. I think people are gonna write ballads about this. Go down in history as an important podcast episode. All right. And everybody. Joe. Stay reckless, Ben. And we'll see you again soon, everybody. Bye. Peace.